You, Anne. It's so nice to be here. As you mentioned, I'm the Energy and Resilience Project Manager at the International Code Council, and today I'm going to be speaking with you all about some of the various federal funding opportunities to support building and energy code adoption at the state and local level. But I would like to, add some more context to what Anne had mentioned so that normally I wouldn't go into as much detail, but I think it's important for this audience. And so I am an NAU grad where I studied environmental sustainability, and I got my master's from ASU where I was a Marvin Andrews Fellow. So I did intern with the city of Chandler, who I see on the call. I did an internship with the water department in Tempe, who's on the call. And then when I became the sustainability director in Lexington, Massachusetts, and moved to the East Coast, I still hopped on the calls that Sustainable Cities Network did and stayed connected to many of you and some of your colleagues in Arizona. So it's great to see some familiar faces and past classmates as well on the call. So I'm very passionate about helping these issues still in Arizona, even though I'm far from Arizona these days. But in my new role at the Code Council, I've been there about a year and a half, and I get to work with communities all over the country at the state, local, tribal level, as well as some of the territories. And we work with them on federal grants. But for those of you that may not be familiar with the International Code Council, just a little bit of background on what the Code Council does. Really, it's evolved from its origin about 30 years ago as being a standard development code organization. And now we refer to it as sort of a family of solutions. And so we have different business units and groups that do training and certifications for building and energy code professionals and other relevant contractors, et cetera, for the building industry. We have product evaluation services and provide accreditation and codification services as well. So if your building department would like to get accredited, that's something ICC helps with, similar to how other, fire department might be accredited or water department, et cetera. We also help with various administrative services. We have an engineering division and they help with engineering projects. And we have third-party evaluation services too. So if you're looking for support in getting, third-party plan review and other assistance in that way. And these are just a few of the types of services that ICC provides. I work with our Center of Focus, which is our energy, innovation, and sustainability. And so we work on sort of the cutting edge issues within building codes, such as fire and wildland codes, offsite construction, green construction code, and some of those other issues. But really, I focus on the federal funding opportunities and helping to connect our members with knowledge and tools to support that process and access these billions of dollars that are available, sort of a once in a generation funding opportunity for codes and sustainability through IRA and bill legislation and funding. And then I help put together those projects for ICC that we're working on as a team member and manage that internally as well. So again, I get to kind of interact with these various divisions at ICC, as well as numerous partners and organizations similar to us across the country. So if you're not familiar with the funding sources, you might be wondering, why does this matter? Why did Anne and her team think this was a good topic to bring to you all? And hopefully you all are familiar with federal grants sort of overall in your communities. It's probably something that other departments work on, if not your own. And so now is a chance for many organizations that have building departments who normally wouldn't have funding opportunities, and even sustainability offices to access funding through these mechanisms. And it's also a tool to help with building and energy codes, which usually hasn't been the case for a lot of federal funding opportunities. And so we're going to go over some of the different challenges and funding sources during this presentation. And then there'll be some time at the end we can, have more of a conversation, and you can ask some questions, and hopefully I can provide answers. So some of the funding streams that are happening in 2024, I'm going to start with the Department of Energy as one of the federal agencies that's providing these funding streams. And this past fall, they announced the Assistance for Latest and Zero Building Energy Code Adoption program, which is funded through the IRA piece of legislation. And this has two programs. There's a competitive funding stream as well as a formula funding stream. And so the competitive program has actually right now up until May 31st is the second round of submissions for concept papers for that competition. And then the full applications are due later this summer. And the first round closed about a month ago. So people have already submitted projects for consideration for that competitive program. And this funding has two different pots of opportunity. There's $330 million to adopt building energy codes, the latest building energy codes. So at least the 2021, you could also adopt the 2024 energy code. And then you could also, if your organization uses ASHRAE 90.1 or another for commercial buildings, anything that is either equivalent to or achieves net zero savings or something greater than these codes is allowed, but the baseline is sort of what energy savings these codes receive. And then $670 million to adopt building energy codes that meet or exceed a zero energy code provision. So more of a stretch code if that is something that your community is looking at doing. Additionally, the formula funding, I believe that Arizona submitted a letter of intent for that funding now that there's a governor's energy office, but that is something that they would have already had to do to submit a letter of intention to apply for that. And then they have the next 5 years to submit various applications under that. And that funding would be mainly eligible for the state to apply for versus the competitive funding jurisdictions at the local level can apply. So again, for this funding right now, the dates to keep in mind are May 31st for this second round of submissions of concept papers, but there will be future rounds as well. So just something to be aware of. Additionally, the Department of Energy has the Resilient and Efficient Code Implementation Program, or RECI. You might have heard people refer to it as RECI, but we mostly call it RECI. And there are, forgive me, I can't remember the total amount that was awarded a couple of years ago for a 5-year program, but originally it was meant to be $45 million per year of those 5 years. But last year they were sort of behind, and so they ended up awarding $90 million in round one. So basically 2 years of funding from that program. And then right now, round two for RECI is open, and they're going to be awarding $90 million again. So they're sort of combining a few of these years into one. We hope that there's going to be that third and final year of the $45 million next year available. Because right now, if you did not submit a concept paper a month ago and are currently working on your submission for a full application for RECI round two, you would have to wait until round three in order to propose a new project. There are some concerns with this funding, because if the funds aren't allocated by the end of the year, and if there's a political shift in Congress or in the president next year, there is a chance that, they could overturn or sort of withdraw these funds. And so I know DOE is working hard to get the projects processed and ensure that those funds get allocated to projects as they should be. And so there's also funding available through FEMA, which you may have heard about the BRIC program, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities. But this last year, they actually created a second set aside through BRIC. Normally, states get $2 million for capability and capacity or other infrastructure projects, but they've set aside a program called Codes Plus Up, and it's specifically for building code projects. And that's $2 million per state and territory, as well as a $25 million tribal set aside that eligible communities at the local level are able to submit applications for. The way that BRIC works is it goes through your local hazard mitigation office. So you would need to submit your application first to the Arizona Emergency Management Office, and they review your application and submit it on your behalf to FEMA. So typically BRIC, the FOA, the funding opportunity announcement for this program, comes out in the fall late summer, so sometime in August. And then there's usually a pre-deadline, if you will, for your state. And so it's important to be in the loop with your state's hazard mitigation office in order to understand what pre-deadlines they might have, different from when the final submissions are due to FEMA. And you could either, submit as your jurisdiction or work with the state to submit a whole application. We got word from FEMA that the BRIC Codes Plus Up, they're currently in the process of reviewing all of those awards for this previous cycle right now. And of the 56 eligible state and territories, 46 are going to be receiving some level of funding from BRIC Codes Plus Up. And some of those are one award per state. Some have 12 awards per state. So then the sort of number of funds awarded per each project is different. So there's I guess a sense of a too big a project. You can't go over $2 million for the state's budget, but you could have a smaller project as well with BRIC. And so that's something to keep in mind. And they are going to be offering this Codes Plus Up set aside again this next cycle. And so ICC has a lot of resources about this program and template materials and things to make that application process more streamlined. And we're going to be doing more webinars about that program this fall as well, to really encourage people to utilize that opportunity. We've also created resources like this federal grant funding decision tree, which as you see in the chat, we'll be sharing these slides with you, but you can also access this through our website. We have a federal grant webpage at ICC, and this is a tool to help you sort of look at the different funding opportunities that I've gone over, as well as some others I didn't go into detail about, and sort of figure out which one might be right for your community. And then this one's more specifically related to the DOE funding through the IRA, because there's sort of that competitive opportunity versus the formula funding, and a few different criteria, sort of if you're looking to do this type of project, here's what you need to know and what funds are available for you, and whatnot. So that just is a different way for you to kind of look at it and try to assess which program is right for you based on what type of organization you are, and what codes you're looking to adopt. So far, our grant projects have, and our efforts to help communities have been very successful. Just in 2023, we were able to support 50 jurisdictions with grant applications, and that's mainly through myself. I'm just a team of one working on our grant efforts, but obviously we lean on other staff at the Code Council for their expertise in the subject matters. And then we've also developed a code officials, grant basics for code officials training course that we offered for members of ICC. And through that course, which we delivered 3 times last year, we trained 150 people on that and gave them an overview of how to navigate the grant process, because obviously as building officials, code officials, it might not be something they've spent time with working on before, and it can be an overwhelming or daunting process. So we tried to create that training in order to help make it easier for folks that maybe are new to this federal funding process. We also have a grant newsletter, which you're all welcome to sign up for, and I have a link to that at the end of my presentation. And each month we reach about 1,500 people, where I provide information about grant deadlines, resources we provide, webinars coming up, and other relevant information related to these types of funding sources. And it's a great way to just kind of stay in the know with what we have going on and what's happening in this world. We also have dedicated one-on-one, technical assistance. So if you are working on an application and there's something that the Code Council can help you with related to training or trying to think through what code you're working on and different issues like that, I can kind of start with you. And if we need to bring in some of our experts to kind of continue the conversation, if it's more codes focused versus just grant support, that's a resource we have available. And then with the Recce grants from round one, ICC is a partner on 8 of those projects, and we're supporting states across the country bringing energy and resilience code training and building code training and other educational opportunities to communities across the country through that Recce funding. And we're currently working on several more projects. But I wanted to highlight a few of the projects that were funded in Recce round one, which are helping codes to deliver on climate mitigation and resilience. With these projects, there's one right at home, with hopefully many of you have heard about, the Resilient Southwest Building Code Collaborative, as well as there's a project in New York that ICC is leading, one in Fort Collins, Colorado, and Illinois. So I'm just going to share a little bit more about this project in Arizona, in case you aren't familiar with it, but many of your cities are partners on it. So that's been great. We just got our papers from DOE for that to be they can start reimbursing for the project. It's been a lengthy effort, as Leslie and the city of Tucson have, we started on this in October and we're just now getting the contracts from DOE. So just to paint a picture of the amount of effort that goes into these initiatives and sort of the long-term impact that they're going to have, there's also a lot of patience required. I believe Leslie and BI and ICC, we started talking about this project in the fall of 2022, and here we are approaching summer 2024, and we're there's a lot of work that's happened so far, but a lot more that's going to happen over the next 4 years. And so this is a great opportunity for these resources to be directed to the Southwest. And if you aren't already engaged with this project, hopefully you will be at some point in the future as it continues to unfold. And I know there is some other workforce development opportunities that Leslie and other partners in the Southwest and in Arizona specifically are working on for Recce round 2 submission. And so some of you may be familiar or have heard about that too. So we're continuing to support these grant resources coming to Arizona to help the workforce as well. There are some examples of previously funded code activities. So if you're wondering how this funding can support your community and what it can do, if these are a little bit more focused for building code departments or building departments, but as you know, as sustainability professionals, there's a lot of impact that the energy efficient building codes or green construction codes can have on the climate goals that your community has as well. So by helping them to be more efficient, updating their codes, etc., hopefully that'll help reach some of your climate and sustainability goals. And so if you don't already work with your building department on some of these issues, these funding sources are a great way to sort of help them get things that they need and help to meet those goals at the same time. And your departments can partner on it as well. So I'm happy to talk more about some of those specific examples of things that we've seen funded from more code specific and technical training resources, et cetera, as well as some of the other RECCE projects that we've seen, whether we're on them or not. We're familiar with some of the other more strategic and community-based efforts going on around energy and building codes across the country. Again, there's many ways that myself and the Code Council can help you all. We have a lot of examples of previous applications, and we have even a template form on our website for you to get sort of a jump start on those brick proposals if you're looking to do different types of initiatives with that. We have ways to get you, quotes and information about services if you're looking to update a code in your community, and just support and sort of thinking through ways that you can utilize this funding. We're happy to be a partner on grants and projects and support collaborating in other ways, as you see with our efforts already in Arizona on these initiatives. And we hope to continue to get opportunities to do that and encourage many of you to take advantage of the BRIC funding as well if you have not yet. And then we can connect you as well with other resources related to policy, codes. We have a dedicated staff person that works on with our states in the Southwest. His name is Rick Blunser, and he is not able to be here today, but he is a resource if you're worried about sort of the federal or local policy landscape around codes. That is more so his focus, and always happy to help if you're running into some of those sort of local battles around codes. That's, what they're focused for, helping to advocate for these issues. And we have additional resources on that if you're already not tapped into sort of our advocacy and outreach efforts at the local and federal level. ICC does a lot of that, and so happy to connect you with other resources about that and just greater information about what the Code Council is doing to help leverage codes and energy codes as well to impact our climate goals, net zero goals across the country and globally. We have the grant training, as I mentioned. If you think this is something that would be beneficial for a community of yours or a chapter of code officials or relevant stakeholders, you could bring ICC to deliver that training either virtually or in person at a conference. So if you wanted to express interest in that, you could scan this QR code and let me know. And then we also have a QR code for you to sign up for our monthly newsletter that I put out. And so you can sign up there and stay in the loop on that. And additionally, you can access that sign up for the newsletter as well as the training interest form on our website, iccsafe.org/federal grants, which I can add in the chat as well. We have our building safety journal, which is a great way to stay in the loop on sort of all the things that the Code Council is doing, industry reports, trends, etc. It's like an online newsletter and blog, if you will, that we're updating weekly. And there's also a listserv you could sign up if you're interested in staying in the know on those topics. And then, of course, the Code Council is on all platforms. So if you aren't already following us on LinkedIn, there's always great resources. Right now is May. It's Building Safety Month, if you aren't aware. So something to keep in mind. And then we have a Pulse podcast, which we're currently developing the second season of, and so we just produced an episode about grants where we're talking more about this, and Clayton Trevelyan from the city of Tucson was interviewed for that. So stay in the loop with checking out when that episode comes out, and you can learn a little bit more about how Leslie and Clayton and the Arizona project has been successful and sort of why we wanted to feature that in our podcast episode. And then if you do have any questions or would like to follow up with me about some of these topics that I covered or needing support with any grant things, you can reach me at federalgrants@iccsafe.org, and we can get in touch that way. So happy to open the floor for some more dialogue and conversations about anything I covered.